Today we'll be demonstrating the use of the Pindex machine for placing pins in a working cast. What we have here is the Pindex machine, and this is a cast that needs to have pins placed with the Pindex machine. Now the way this works in theory is that we turn it on, and you'll notice that this little red light is lit, signifying that it's on. If we're very quiet, we can hear the drill right here whirling around, and we can see that there is a little white light right in the 2 o'clock position relative to the drill. Okay, in reality, this little white light should be right on top of the drill, and what you're looking at is a broken Pindex machine. This one is in the Sobel lab. If we were to demonstrate this technique with the Pindex machines upstairs in the big lab, it would be even more difficult because those lights are so faint that you can't even see them. So, we really don't have a good Pindex machine anywhere in the building. That would sound like a bad thing, but it's not, because even if the little light were to be properly centered, it doesn't work the way it's intended. The idea is that you can put the little light right on the spot where you want a pin to go, and once you've put your light where you want it, and then hold this steady and lift this up, the pinhole should be in the base of this cast directly under the light, and in no way will it jeopardize the margins of the preparation. However, this is not a case of getting what you see. The light doesn't correlate with the desired position. You can't trust the light on a Pindex machine whether the light's in the right place or not. So, because of that, we have to use a different technique to plot the position of the Pindex holes to ensure that they'll go where we want them and not be on the margin of a die. Alrighty, we're going to be fabricating ultimately a 5-unit bridge between tooth number 6 to 10. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This cast has a very fine die for tooth number 9. This cast is tooth number 7. This cast is tooth numbers 6 and 10. Now, depending upon which tooth is going to be the die, we will then determine where we want to place the pins. For this tooth, we want 2 pins, so that when it's all finished, this die will not rotate. The 2 pins hold it in like a removable staple. So we want to have a pin here and a pin here. This section of edentulous ridge should be freely movable on its own, so we'll give it a pin here and a pin here. This section can come off as 1 unit. It still needs 2 pins for stability, so it needs a pin here and a pin here. This section can come off in 1 unit, and we need a pin here and a pin here. Now, I could just go to the machine and go right to the middle of this section and put a pinhole here and here, and it won't hurt anything because there's nothing critical in this area. Same is true even for the pontic area because there's no margins of a preparation that I need worry about. So I can just make certain that I'm, say, in the middle of the pontic zone. But this one is critical. So the means that I employ to make certain that everything is where I want it is as follows. I am going to place a little pencil line right at the center of this die. I'm going to carry that pencil line down to the bottom of the cast. I am then going to carry a pencil line in line with the die down to the lingual border of the cast. I now turn this over and I can see this pencil line and this pencil line. And I will take a ruler and I will connect the pencil lines. Please note that the base of the cast is perfectly flat so that it won't wobble on the stage of the Pindex machine. This ensures parallelism of the pins. Now I know that I want my pin somewhere on this line. I also am going to do the same for the pontic area, just so that I'm in the center of the pontic. Now, how far up does this go when I lift it? It goes up, and if the camera isn't watching this, that's quite all right. I am measuring how high the drill goes above the flat table of the Pindex machine, and it is 6.5 to 7 millimeters. And I look at the thickness of my base, and that is 6.5. So it goes to the base of that die. It's about 7 or 8 millimeters. So it's possible, since the finish line is deeply subgingival, that if I were right on that finish line, I could be in trouble when it comes to the end point of the drill. So I don't want to be right underneath that facial margin. So I know then that my first pin placement is going to be right about here, where I've made the X. And I'm measuring in from the front. I'm 5 millimeters in. 5 millimeters in is a little shaky. I'm not happy with that. Changed my mind. I'll move this pencil line right to there, and that's the one I'm hitting. On the lingual, I don't have the same concerns because there's so much lingual tooth structure. I just want to be in an area that's high enough. That's about I can easily be 5 millimeters in on that with no issue whatsoever. And that's right here. This one, I'm in good shape without measuring. I'll have one here and one here. And then these, I know later that I'm going to be cutting the cast right down here, and right here, and right here. And these lines I'm going to just sort of zigzag to know that they're cut marks, because later on that helps me know where to place the saw. Okay, so now we'll go back to the Pindex machine. Now, here's how I make certain that the drill bit goes to the right spot. I am at eye level with the table. I'm seated on a chair, drop down onto this bench so that I can look directly underneath the cast. I then lift the cast up in the air and bring the drill tip right to the X mark that I have made, and then I very gently lower it without shifting the position of the cast. I then turn on the machine, hold the cast steady, drill the hole, drop the pin, and turn off the machine. You'll notice we now have a pinhole right on the X. I'll now do the next one. The next one. This one's the most critical. And the last. Okay, now I'm going to drop out of sight for a moment and just blow these off with some laboratory air. I'm in the lab, so that's forceful air. So that I can show you, can you see? That the pinholes are exactly where I want them, and this, having been brought up all the way to its full height, has given us the little countersink on the perimeter of the pinhole that receives the little lip of the pin, as we'll see in a moment. Now I can go ahead and put in the rest of the holes for the posterior segments, and as I said, I can do that with relative ease because I need a pin here and here to stabilize this section, and a pin here and here to stabilize this. So I'm now just standing up. I'm approximately, as far as the light is concerned, in the center of the cast. I hold it steady and place a pinhole. Then I'll come back here, hold it steady, and place a pinhole. Then I'll come over here, because I'm going to do the same thing on this side. And then the posterior here. And we now have the 4 additional holes, which I will clean out. Okay, the next step then is to trial fit the pins into the pinholes before using crazy glue to put them in position. Okay, well, just a second has passed since I last spoke to you. We've actually had the camera off, and I did a little bit with this. I used this burr to create a bevel along the entire perimeter of the cast. And this will come in very handy when we're beating and boxing this for the final pour of the base, because the boxing wax will be placed, the beating wax will be placed just below this bevel, and then when the entire thing is separated, each of these sections will have a little nest that they fit into on the base, as you'll see. But the next thing to do is to take one of the pins, and we use the long pins in these single zones and the long pin in the front, or the anterior part of each of the doubles. Now, long as opposed to what? Well, there's a long pin, and there's a short pin. If they'll stop moving, there we are. So we're going to use the long ones. Now, do they fit? Well, I try it in place, and it seems to drop down all the way. That's very good. Do the same thing here, and that drops down almost all the way, but not quite. Perhaps there's a little debris still in the bottom of it. I'm going to take this drill and just bring it gently down to the base. Go back and get some air to blow out any of the little chips that may have stayed at the bottom of that. Now I'll try that pin again. And now it drops down all the way. So now what I'm going to proceed to do is trial fit the pins in all of these holes, and when that's done, I'll be back. Okay, I'm back. I've trial fit the big pin into every single one of the holes, and where necessary, use this little drill to enlarge it. I don't know the dimensions of this, but it's sized to match the drill bit in the Pindex machine. So it's a question then of going to the specifics of the machine to find out the size and getting one from a hardware store. All right, now we're going to cement these in with crazy glue. Crazy glue. And here's the actual glue itself. Now, if I were to try to just put this onto the tip of the pin and then pick up the pin and get the pin properly in the hole, I could run into trouble because I could wind up with the crazy glue on my fingers and then the pin and I are permanently stuck together. So instead, I'm going to put a little drop of the glue on this piece of paper and then dip this into the glue and then put it in the pinhole, like so. There's a little bit of glue. I run this in the glue, put it in the hole, push it down all the way, and say, good, that's one done. Now I'm going to come again with the second one, get more of the glue on it, put it in position, drop it in all the way, and that's number 2. And already we can see that these 2 pins are parallel to each other, which is critical because this section, once it's sawed, will come out as one piece. Alrighty, now I'm going to place pins in the die and the edentulous space area, and it's easier for access to place the small ones first. And since they're so tiny, and I'm a little concerned about getting glue on my fingertips, I'm going to hold these with a hemostat and place it with the hemostat. And I need some more glue, so I give myself a little puddle of glue and get some glue on the base of the pin and then the sides of the pin, and go ahead and insert this one down all the way. So there's our little one. Alright, now what I'm going to do off camera is finish this in exactly the same fashion. I'll be back in a moment. Alright, now all of the pins have been cemented in place. The next step is to place the sleeves. So the gray sleeves go on the short posts. There's a little offset. If we look very carefully between my fingers, you'll notice that the base of this is not a total pure circle. One side is cut flat. And that's to ensure that if you had pins that would posts that were very close together, you could actually seat these without the base touching each other. And I've done that here, even though there's ample room between them. The flat faces the flat. I make sure that it's seated thoroughly. And now I'll take the white sleeves and place them on all of the long posts. And when this is finished, I will then proceed to bead and box the entire potential base area of this cast all the way around here, as you'll see when it's finished. But I'll describe what I'm about to do. I will, as I said a moment ago, be placing the beading wax just coronal or occlusal or up, if you will, from this bevel that I placed. I will be placing a flat piece of base plate wax in here just so that the cast has a flat bottom, and then I'll box it in a traditional fashion. So there we are, ready for beading and boxing. Alrighty, here is our cast, Pindexed, now beaded and boxed, and ready for the pour of the base. You'll notice that the beading wax has been placed slightly coronal to the offset groove that was milled around the perimeter. And when we look at the final product after this base is poured and set, you'll see how that provides a recess for all of the dies to sit. You'll also notice that there are 2 blue tubes extending from the forward pins of the abutment and the adjacent pontic space. These 2 devices are known as dowel aids, and here is a box of dowel aids. These provide channels in the base stone through which we can place a screwdriver or a 7/8 spatula to lift up on the bottom of the dowel pin. And this way we don't have to try to insert a knife in between the green stone and the base stone to pry up the pins. The way these work is very intriguing. As you can see, there's a little hole right there into which the end of the dowel pin fits. And then, and it would go into place like so, right through this wax. We just cut a sleeve off, drop this down, and then wax around it, as you can see. Then when it's all said and done, we can pull this out. In order for it to pull out, it comes out in two pieces. This first outer sleeve, when you grab the handle, comes out first. And it leaves this little business behind. We can then grab this, and there's now enough space provided. This gave us the spacer, so that the end of this can lift up and disengage the bottom of the pin and pull out. All right, then the next thing you will see is the completed cast. Be sure to lubricate the bottom of the cast with Vaseline, dye lubricant, or soapy water which has been blown dry before pouring the base. Yes, I do agree it's unfortunate that you don't have these in your kit, but they are available through Shine if you wish to purchase some. And now here we have the Pindex cast following the pouring of the base stone. It is now ready for sawing the dies out and ditching the dies. So if you wish to see how dies are sawed from Pindex cast and then ditched, I refer you to the videotape on that subject. And I'm sorry, I forgot to mention something. I'm sure you're all curious as to what the little channels look like after the dowel aids have been removed. And so we'll elevate this, and you can see deep down inside the channels are the heads of the dowel pins. So after sawing, one can just lift up on them with a screwdriver, or in this case, a Christensen crown remover, which fits right in the slot and can be used to push them up. But then again, you'll see that in the tape on sawing and ditching.